All right, guys, last coin for the day. This was the last one that members had requested here. This is Enigma to Bitcoin on Binance. So I've got the 4-hour up here. Now, this is an interesting project. This is a long-term hold for me, but it's also trading very technically. So it's a hold as well as something that can be traded with a swing trading approach, as I'm going to show you here. So take a look here now. This has only been around for 4 months. Market cap 300 million, already over 60 here on the CoinGecko scale. And look at this developer activity. That's remarkable for a coin that's only 4 months. 4 months onto the scene. So let's go take a look. Well, let's see. We'll do this as I always do. We'll show where it's trading. We look here. So Binance has the majority of it, Bittrex as well, almost all to Bitcoin, a little bit of Ethereum as well. So let's look at it here. Now I've got it here. This is the Binance chart. So I've got a 4-hour of Enigma to Bitcoin on Binance here. So here's the genesis date and the craziness of an ICO. Here's our absolute low. I've just wicked that off. And you can see here, right, just what we like to see. So we get a very nice 5-wave structure to give us a 1-wave. And this was all very technical. So a new coin like this, first thing you want to say, hey, well, is it trading technically? Well, so we can look here. So here's our 1-wave. Here's the 2. We come just shy of the 618. Up we go. There's the 3rd. Now you'll recall, as I've shown you in a couple of videos, I'm going to take this off over here, so we'll get there eventually. So we get the 1, 2, right? So here's the first algo target. They blow through it, and here's the negative 100, which is an extreme. But just the point I want to make here is that you can see that oftentimes the negative 100 will be very close to the to the 1618 here. So you can see this is the high probability zone for our 3rd, and right where we go, right? So it gets front run a little bit, so they take some profit, and look at the reaction. So that would imply to us that we've got a good 1, 2. I mean, that can't get any more technical, right? Just where you'd expect the 2, the little front run on the 618, they rip it higher. We go right to the 1618. From an Elliott perspective, it couldn't be any prettier than this. We don't overlap the 1, so we stay with an impulsive move, and then we finish up here with the 5th, right? Just as I can't get any more technical than that. That's literally right out of an Elliott wave textbook. They don't get any prettier than that. And then we just for fun, we could look here, check the 2 to the 4 as you would, right? So of course we're doing this with the benefit of hindsight. So if it were trading right edge of the market, we'd be looking, knowing we had that 3. Well, what do we do for the 4? So it's the exact same thing. It's front run the 618 just as we did down here, like algos, right to target. So that's kind of the a lot of the point of what I'm trying to show you in these videos. I mean, so someone would say, what is this stupid algo thing you're talking about? Oh, that's bullshit. Guys, I don't know how you argue with that, right? That's as clear evidence as you can see. And this is a coin that's 4 months old, right? So are algos in? You tell me. What do you see? Right? So from the 618, they get their target. And look at the reaction, right? So this is how you determine whether algos are in. It's not the buy here. It's what happens here. See, that's how you know they're in, right? So look, it's just straight down, right? So they took their profit and the market just collapses, right? So that's what's driving it there. They get it, and then down we go. So okay, so now we would look at that and say, okay, well for us, we're just trying to get in around behind them. Are they there? Yeah, they're there. Okay, so how can that help us? Well, we can look at this and say, okay, well we've got a completed 5-wave sequence. So what are we looking for? Well, now we're just, as Elliott traders, we're trying to get a handle on whether or not do we have a 2-wave? Is the 2 in over here? Are we going to get the crypto triangle that we so often see, where the C wave doesn't make it below the A wave? I mean, do we have this? I was just playing with some alternatives here, which is kind of the process you have to go through. Do we have A, B, and then we're going to get the truncated C wave here for a 2? Possible. Is the ABC already in? And we've got a 1, 2, right? Is this possible? We're going for a 3, 4, 5. I mean that's certainly possible as well. So let me take that off. So how do you know? Well, you gotta dig in a little bit and see what can you make sense of it. So the assumption would be if this is a 1, 2, well then this correction here we have to get 3-wave subdivision into that to confirm it. Now, just now, this is where it's always a good idea to step back a little bit, not get too granular with a 15-minute where you're trying to. You got to step back and say, okay, I know I've got a 5-wave sequence. It's as technical can be. I can't get it any prettier. Okay, so now I'm looking for 3 waves. I get the rip down. Now, is this the ABC completing? Or more likely, are we looking for more subdivision here? Right, so this would be abrupt, right, for that to be a completed correction, given how pretty this subdivision was. My expectation is that what's more likely here is that the 2 is just going in now, and we had an A, B, C. So question becomes, is this here, right? So is it playing this way? A, B, C. So let's go down to the hourly and see if we can make any sense of that. Well, so here we go. We look at this and say, well, wait a minute. Okay. Could it be? So what are the tells that we would look for? Well, now when you get down here, it gets a little trickier, right? So you can see, just as when I brought it up, I was trying to get a handle on this because we've got mixed signals, really. So if this is our B, right, this looks a lot to me like a 5-wave, right? So it looks, yeah, you could. Really, it's hard to ignore that. So you would have to look at this and go, okay, so there's a 1, 2. It's hard not to get a 5-wave out of that. So if I look here, I've got 1, 2. I get good subdivision. There's a 3, 4, 5. So what do I do about that? Well, that doesn't work as a B wave, right? Can't have that subdivision. That's pretty hard to ignore. And this is trading technically. So now we got to think twice and say, wait a minute. Okay, well that doesn't play as a B. A B has to have 3. Where can I find 3? Now that looks a little bit more likely. So wait a minute. Let's look here. So see, this is kind of a little bit of deductive reasoning where you have to. You kind of have to reverse engineer it and say, okay, does that work? Could that be the ABC? And then now what would we have here? This would be a 1. So let me lower the degree just so it makes sense. So this would be potentially a 1 wave. So our 2 would be in over here. See, so now you'd look at this and go, wait a minute, okay, if that's a 1 wave, then I'm putting in maybe this is my 2 and 3, 4, 5 is over here. Put that in a different color. So that certainly is a contender. Well, if that's going to be the case, then we've got to look at this and say, well, does this play as an ABC? Well, what are the tells that we're looking for? Let's open it up a little bit more. Right. So, you got to qualify it. Okay. So this right here is the correction that looks like we could play this as. If I bring this in on a smaller degree, it looks to me like we could get an A, B, C right there. So if I bring that down, so that potentially sets up. Get down it. Okay, so there's potentially our A wave goes in here. Okay, so we look at that and go, okay, well let's take a look here. If that's going to be my B wave here. Well, it looks like we might have a 1, 2. Let's see, 1. Let me put a count on it here so we can track it. So, looks like we might have a 1, 2. Have to check that 3, 4, 5 into that possibly. Let's check that 1 wave. So again, I'm just kind of this is the process you got to go through. So we look here and we say if that's the 2, see it doesn't work, right? You see that because the 3rd wave would be shorter than the 1 wave, right? Now remember, 3rd wave doesn't have to be the longest, just can't be the shortest, and in this case, it would be the shortest. So we got to look at that and go, okay, well maybe I've got a 4 here and my 3rd is here because there's 100%. Do you see that? So if I take the length of 1 projected from what would appear to be the 2, well then I can get a diagonal here. So I'd have A, B, C into that. Here's the 4. Now does that work? Well, it's a shallow 4, definitely a shallow 4. So if I pull from the 2 to the 3, well, it's right to the 23.6, right? That's not uncommon for a 4th. And then look here what happens. Right, this is how you start to build the case. So what do we get here? So we get right to the algo target. All right, so then you start looking at that, going, okay. Well, let's look here. So if we work from this pivot, well, here's something. Here's a contender that plays. Here's the 618, but this is just right on the money. So if we go from here to the 3 to the negative 23.6 to the tick. Okay, so now I've got a reasonable candidate here for this to play as an A wave. So if I'm going to put that in white. We'll go down a degree. Let's go all the way down. Okay. So I can get an A wave here. I get a little A, B, C, and then I come down here. It looks like we might have a C that's in. So let's check that, right? You got to qualify it. So if that's my A, this is my B. I get my little A, B, C here. Well, do I get 5 waves again into my C? Am I going to get a zigzag? 5, 3, 5. So looks like 1, 2. Got to check that. 3, 4. Into a 5. Okay, does that play? Well, let's qualify it. So if this is my 1 wave, that's my 2. Okay, well there's my third going beyond 100% of the length of the 1 wave. So that plays. Okay, so what do I have here? I get the overlap in the 4, so I have an ending diagonal. So if I look at that and say, okay, well, I'm going to look for the length of the 3 wave projected from the 4. Well, here's the 50 to the tick. Here's the next algo target. Boom. So now I can look at that and say, okay, well, even though in the 4 hour, it looked to me like this was just an A wave, if I dig in a little deeper here on the 1 hour, I can get a very clean ABC. I get a perfect zigzag, 5, 3, 5. So what does that mean? Well, that means that now this starts to make sense as a 1 wave, because coming out of this, right, coming out of my tap down here as a 2, pull this off. Well, now this starts to make sense. Okay, if my 2 is in, and I've got this nice clean zigzag, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means I've got a 1 wave in here. Okay, well, let's think about that. Well, if that's a 1 wave, what are we looking, just like we were pulling here for this 2 wave? Well, now we're going to check for this as a 2 wave. So if I pull from my low here to my high, oh, lo and behold, where do we go? Right to the golden pocket. Right, so you can look at this and say, well, there's like I mean, this is, you know, who knows what that is. Some bonehead puts in a market order. It could be a number of different things here. But that's just an aberrant spike out of that. So something out of the ordinary happened there. Somebody, who knows, something unusual here. So I'm inclined not to factor that in. I would defer to this pivot here. But it looks to me like I can get an ABC into a 2 wave here. I come right to where I love it, right at the golden pocket. And then maybe here, you know, this is just a second test of it. So we're gonna test this low. You know, I'd like to see more of a reaction that's deeper than I would have liked to have seen. But if I look at this, well, here's my first target here. So this certainly still is a contender as a 1 wave. This is deep, but I can, you know, maybe make the case I've got a diagonal coming in here, so I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4 double top into the 5. So potentially, possibly, if I can get that hot, I can get a 1 wave here, deep 2, right? But we know if it's going to go deep, it's going to be in the 2. So we look at that and say, well, that could work. That could work. You know, we don't overlap here. I mean, that's as deep as they can go. But, you know, maybe it's just a retest of the low down here to check that 618. So could be. You know, we got to see what the reaction is. But the fact that I can get 5 here suggests to me that I've got a 1 in. And now I'm trying to get legs here to get into that third, to get a 1 wave up here out of my so I'm playing up, so on the larger degree here. So let's back out a little bit. So larger degree. Now working on the premise that I've got my 2 in. Here's my 1, 2 of this in green here, right? So this would all have to scrunch this up. So this would all have to be moved over a little bit. So we have this long sort of sagging 2, which I don't love, but you know, it's kind of what we're seeing in crypto right now. It's, you know, not ideal, but that's what we got. So again, remember the negative 100 will be very close. And, you know, I'll just do it for you. Will be very close to the 1618. So if I pull that over, right? Do you see that? See how it's just literally right on top of it? So it's good. So when you're doing the algo pulls, you can eyeball up here and say, well, I know my 1618 is going to be right up around here. My 1272 here. I'm looking for 100% right here. I can just eyeball that and say, okay, well, we at least got to get that, and that's my algo target. So if I'm trying to get a third wave going here, well, this is trying to carve out a 1 of my third. So, you know, I got 3 pivots here, so I'm get that off of there. So I'm going to get a pitchfork on this. That's a wide fork, but we got to at least consider it. Does that play? Does that play? You know, maybe you'd play it that way. So here's your median line for the third in that. Probably too steep if we go to original. Let's just have a look, see. I mean, that could play, right? So there's, if that's 1, 2, now we're going to have to, it's going to have to get rolling here. More than likely, this is going to need to be turned into a modifier unless this thing is just going to explode. So you're going to have to go to a modified, right? So if we look at that and go to the modified shift as a potential channel, so we'll go modified shift knowing that that's going to be very close to a channel. So here's a reasonable target. Here's our algo target. This all may be sliding over here as time passes. But I mean, this is pretty technical. So how do you argue with that? Right? I mean, we saw what happened along the way. This market clearly has algos involved. They're double tapping the 618. I mean, you can buy it. You could be buying it right here, right? So where's your stop going to be? On the other side of the 65? Because if that happens, then we invalidate this as our 2, right? So the 2 has to go down here if we take out this pivot low. So what do I like about that? Because the risk reward is so low. Right, so the risk is so low. So you can be a buyer right here knowing that if this low is violated, the count is wrong, and you're out. Small loser. Small loser. Right, I'll take a small loser. I got no problem with that. I'll just reevaluate, but I'm not gonna give it all the way down here. See if this was giving me trouble before. Yeah, that's better. So no reason to give it down to here. Just no reason to do it. So if I can get this. There we go. So there we go. So even just the first algo target, what do we get there? Well, that's 3 to 1. Here's the big one that we're looking for. That's 6 to 1. That's if we get a good third of this degree here in green, right? So your buyer in here, maybe you get a little pullback, tighten that up under the 65, 6.7 to 1, maybe a little higher up here if we're going to get it right on the dot. There's 6.84 to 1. Take that all day long. All day long, right? So maybe you don't load the boat here because we're a little late to the party, a little bit. I mean, that's not a lot, right? So you don't go heavy here, but that's a place to put a toe into it, looking for a third, right? Knowing that if it takes this out, we're out. That's not going to blow your account up. Here's our first target for our 3. Somehow the median line likely to be involved. We know if this holds here, we've got 80% odds of getting to the median line, but our target is up here, the negative 100, because we know that's the 1618. If we're going to get a good 3. So, that's definitely a contender. Great project. You got a nice, easy entry here. You know where you're wrong, where to get out. You got a nice target up here. And that target, that 3, remember, this is all relative to this, right? We know that target, really, the big target, is way, 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 way up higher, right? So that would be the 1618 of the 1-2 to that degree. Right? So here's the 100, 127, 1618. So, you're trying to get in here, take that little bit of risk, but ultimately, what's your big target, your long-term target? Now you got 18.65 to 1. You see that? So it's waves within waves, right? So you've got targets all relative to these smaller degrees. All play to these small degrees. Right now, we're just trying to get in, not expose ourselves too much to massive downside. Can we get in? Let me see if I can get that pitchfork hot for him. Get to the original. Can we get in here knowing that this median line's contender here with this as a long-term target? I don't know, maybe it takes a while to get there. Maybe we're redrawing here. But now you put it in some context and you say, absolutely. I mean, 18 to 1? What more are you looking for? What more can you ask for? I don't know how that gets any better. Get on it. Stop below the 65. Simple, clean trade. If you get stopped out, you reevaluate. Then the trade is wrong. Then the count is wrong. Maybe this thing is just going down here. Maybe it has to get down lower here and the 2's not in. But you wait for more information. Right now, there's no reason not to take that trade. Unless you know something I don't. Right? And the technician's first assumption is all the known fundamental analysis at any moment in time is factored into that price. So everything that can be known about what's going on with Enigma right now is reflected in that price right there. Something new happens, well, that could change things. That's why your stop is here. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it there.